Hello and welcome to episode 4 of the Portal Hunter Club. I am your Mew Master, Red Fox 1701. Welcome again to another great meeting of the mind units at the Portal Hunter Club. Today we are not recording live. However, we still have an awesome show lined up for everyone. We're going to get into some of the things we haven't been able to get into in the last shows. We have some voicemails and call-ins and things that on the topics of guardians, first anomalies, how did people get into Ingress, and I'd like to talk a little bit about my own personal experience with my first anomaly to kind of get people into the anomaly fever. As we all know, there's a year plus worth of anomalies coming up. And I'm so excited, especially with the show going on, to get into anomalies and talking about them, getting people excited for them. So, excuse me. Whoa. So one of the things, let's get right into it. Let's talk about guardians. So on the first episode, we had people call in and talk about where was your guardian, what happened with it. Tell us a little bit of a story about your guardian. So we have a couple of voicemails we didn't get to. So let's start with one of them.
Good morning, Drew. This is Wreck-It Wabbit. So my guardian, I've pretty much traveled the entire country, Austin, Texas, to D.C., down to New Orleans, and I've almost always dropped seeds everywhere, every small area I could find. The one that ended up going Onyx ended up being 15 minutes from my house and ended up lasting 401 days before I forgot to recharge it.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Wreck-It Wabbit, for that call-in about your guardian. I have the same idea that you do when it comes to guardians. The only way to get a guardian is keep playing, keep planting those seeds, because you never know when you're going to accidentally grab a portal that ends up being your guardian. So my guardian ended up being in a local town here, and it's typically a resistance farm town. And resistance will drive through and set up all the portals, and then every once in a while you'd get someone like City Girl, or you'd get at the time there was a player, Stellan. Some of these players, they'd come through the town, blow up the farm, as they do, and but they would miss this one little corner of the town, and they just kept forgetting to hit that little. Those are the best portals. If you're a city player and you find it hard to get out in the country, let's see, everyone thinks, okay, I gotta find the farthest away portal, in the middle of nowhere, or on a desert island, or in a military base. No, you don't have to do that. I had one in the city of Milwaukee last for 70 days that was just one block off of the main bar street in town, on one of the main bar streets in town here. So it is possible to get a good guardian in the city. You just gotta find those areas where those players, where the opposite team doesn't play very much, or things like that, and just these spots that are just a little bit off the beaten path. Those are the key areas to get your guardians in cities. It ended up being where I got mine. So definitely a good idea, like he said there. We got another voicemail here about guardian.
Hey there, it's Pamagica here. Thought I'd call in on the first show. Hopefully I'll get in.
Sorry, Pam. Sorry, I gotta cut. You called in during the first show, so make sure when you guys are calling in, leave your IGN and call in before the show. We do have the live call-ins now, but it's set up a little bit differently. But I'll continue here.
I had King of Kings down off of Hopkins Avenue for 269 days. Lousy Ways kind of tipped me off that that was a really good place to plant one. So I did, and then pretty sure that Scrapers came and got it. Release the Panic was actually the one who took it. And so that was a very sad day, but I did get the Onyx, so yeah. Okay. Have fun, guys. Bye.
Thank you, Pam, for the voicemail. And by the way, Pam is the one that did all of the visuals that you see on the show, the little intro thing, the transition scenes, some of our social media stuff. She's done all that, and she does a great job, and I want to thank her personally on the show right now for that. But yes, back to her voicemail. Again, she had one that was sort of in the middle of Milwaukee in an area that not a lot of people go to, and you get people who accidentally drive through. They get a key, they keep recharging stuff, and sometimes you get guardians and you don't even realize it. Someone is recharging these portals and you don't really know. That kind of happened to me at first. And then one trick, if you're not sure what your guardian is, one trick that I do is, now I don't know if this works on iPhone, but you can go to Google location history, and if you have your Google location history set up, it'll keep track of where you've been and all that kind of stuff. So you figure out how many days back, so you look on your scanner and you figure out how many days your guardian's going, and then you look back and see on the Google location history where you were that day, and you just kind of start scanning the portals and seeing where your portal is. And now mine was in a farm town, so it's like the Google location history had me going around in circles, but eventually you're going to find that one. It might take a few minutes to go through those portals, but you can definitely find your own guardian. It just takes a little bit of time and effort to go through some of the data that you have. So that's some of the discussion we have on guardians. Now let's talk about how people got into Ingress. Now we have some emails, sorry. One of these up here. We have a email from Winter Rose. So Winter Rose writes, my agent name is Winter Rose. I've been playing Ingress for a little over 4 years now. My husband, Spazzer, played first and got me and the rest of the family playing as well. We came to the Resistance as former frogs, and all of our friends were Resistance, and we faced some pretty hard exclusion within the Enlightened. So I submitted my request for faction change, and my husband followed suit. The Resistance quickly became our second family. Well, thank you for making the hard decision to faction change. I know with Ingress, it's a very personal experience. It's different from other games because you're meeting these people in real life, you make real friendships, and sometimes it can be very difficult to leave those because of drama or other sorts of things happening in your area. So I'm sure it was a very difficult decision, but I thank you for joining the Resistance, obviously. We don't hold back our biases here. And yeah, see, that's what the thing is, your husband got her into it and the rest of the family's playing. That's another cool thing about Ingress is I've seen so many families at these anomalies. We had families that people push strollers and things, they had their kids going. They were, the kids were doing their thing. Mom and dad are playing Ingress, and it's a fun time for the family. It gets people out in the outdoors, enjoying their cities, enjoying a little mini vacation for the weekend, those sorts of things. So thank you, Winter Rose, for writing in. We also got an email from Tony. Tony was the guest on the first episode that we had. So he writes, Bad Eye 99 introduced me to the game as a Resistance agent locally in his hometown. A few months later, spring came back, and he saw that there were no portals around, and he didn't make any progress in the game. So Bad Eye took him to an area that's well known for leveling up players here, and later in that day took him to another farm, learned how the scanner worked, met Quasarina, who's another awesome Resistance agent locally here, and wanting to play more and more, he got his friend, Generally Obvious, to drive him around in his Pontiac Firebird. Generally Obvious downloaded the game 2 days later, and we have a nice little friendship group there of Resistance agents locally that all started the game thanks to one awesome local player. So that's another thing is not only can you get your families into the game, but you can get your friends and neighbors into the game as well. Bad Eye obviously was friends with Tony, got him into the game. Tony got his friend into the game. You know, it goes from there. And unfortunately, so there's the recruiter badge. I should have the silver recruiter badge right now, but I don't. I don't even have the bronze. And it's because people don't know how to use the link and everything. It's a little bit confusing how that all works. But the key point is, the only way to truly win in your area is to recruit more players. Recruits are the best weapon against the other team. It doesn't matter how much you farm. It doesn't matter how big your fields are. If you don't have, you know, fresh bodies in there helping out with the cause, you're not going to be able to continually control that area. You're going to wear some of your people out. Thank you again, Tony, for not only being our first guest, but also writing in on that topic. We also have an email from Graceless Hopper, the level 16 resistance agent from Kansas City. And she writes, I got into Google Plus before Ingress and remember a lot of early plussers posting invite codes and such. However, I was writing my dissertation at the time and didn't have time to investigate it, let alone start playing. The next summer after I'd finished, I'd had time on my hands. A classmate from a game design course was talking about playing it, so I asked him for an invite. He sent me one. He told me to pick blue because that was his team, so I did. After I couldn't figure out how to make the portal creation work in the training mission, I thought, whatever, I'll just quit. But he met up with me on campus the next day, showed me how to hack, capture neutral portals, and that was the start of what will be a 5-year obsession with portals and anomalies as of August. Well, I started, so thank you, Graceless Hopper, for writing in. I started the game, I think it was July of 2013. Yeah, so you would have started in August of the same year, which is awesome. Or was it? Yeah, it would have been. Okay. Yeah, so we started right around the same time. It was I like to time ingress based on anomalies. So I started during Minotaur. She would have started during Cassandra, I think, summer of 2013. And here you go. Not only can you have friends, family, but you have classmates and other people that you just meet and get them into the game. And again, the biggest weapon is recruiting. Recruit as many players as you can. Get them, show them the game, because obviously Graceless Hopper here, she had issues with the game, couldn't figure out the mission. She's just like, screw this, I can't figure this out, whatever. But no, her friend spent the time, took her to a farm, showed her around campus, showed her how the game works. That's how you nurture these new players and the new recruits. So thanks again for writing in about that. So I think I went in a little bit about how I got into the game and my story of the Microsoft Zune and podcasting and all that kind of stuff. We also have a couple of emails about their first anomaly. So some people had written in, they're talking about first anomaly last week. So this email's from I'm a Classy Lady. So I'm a Classy Lady 98 writes, she's from Northern Illinois. So her first anomaly that she actually went to was Minneapolis for Aegis Nova. And actually, that was St. Paul, but I'll give you a break there. Before that time, though, I did Bat Phone several times when that was still a thing. So one of the things for new people who may not realize this is back in the 2013, 2014-ish time frame, one of the things that you could do to score in this game was you would put a field over the anomaly site. Not only would that limit the scoring of the other team by preventing people from linking, but it also gave like a bonus points, for whoever had the biggest field or had a field up during a certain time. They changed the rules every time, remember, so to keep it fresh. But one of the aspects of scoring in anomalies used to be putting fields over sites. And one of the roles that people would have if you couldn't attend a site to help out would be something called bat phone. And that would be a list of agents that were ready on the go and were communicating with other intel folks that were connected to the on the ground people, so that if a field was going up over this site, we could have people respond out and try and block those fields before they could get up. Or they would assist with your own team's field, and then if the other team happened to also be putting up a field, they would be right there helping to block those. So thank you, I'm a Classy Lady 98, for writing in, and thank you for your time and effort being a bat phone agent. I know that can be very, what's the word for it? Boring? Because you're kind of just sitting there waiting to see if a field, unless if you're not doing your own field on your own team, you're just kind of like, okay, you know, I'll go out in the field, take some portals and, you know, out in the towns and stuff. But then when you get the call, you're there and you're ready to go and you're fully stocked up and everything. So it's a underappreciated job. And unfortunately, well, I guess I have my own opinions on fielding oversights for scoring. I think they made the right decision to get rid of that, but make that. Thank you again for your time and effort in doing that. We do have another email from one of our favorites here on the show, Victor73. Victor73. He was the live caller for the last week's episode, and he helped with what I call episode 0, where I was testing all the equipment, and for whatever reason it took me like an hour to get my own audio out. Everyone could hear Victor when we were testing, but no one could hear me. So anyway, so Victor writes about his first anomaly, and his first anomaly was in Enteritus, and the location was Madison. So this would have been March of 2014. Yeah, because recursion was, yeah, so this was in spring of 2014. He writes, I missed out on Cassandra in Chicago because of other obligations. This was before I really knew the impact of anomalies and developing contacts throughout the region. He was just meeting new people in general. Then recursion happened, and I was away in Phoenix for my yearly spring training trip. So I missed out on that one too. Once I heard that Enteritus was going to happen in Madison, I made the trip up and teamed up with some more UCR folks, the United Chicagoland Resistance. And we had a blast. The only major issue was the constant incline. Who the F builds a school at the top of a hill? By the end of the last measurement, my feet and my calves were killing me. I remember only a few things of that anomaly. My legs were killing me from all the walking uphill and then the wheezing like an asthmatic. Myself, Spam Assassin, and one other agent getting into the groove, deploying and modding on 3 portals against several enlightened agents, and getting to the last measurement, being surrounded by 20 fully loaded enlightened with only a handful of bursters left, and using level 1 resonators to deploy. I think we lost that anomaly, and I'll be damned if I can remember the after party. As a side note, you mentioned Opal Blitz starting in a previous episode. A friend of mine got Crunchberry into the game, and a few weeks later, he got me an invite, and then a couple weeks later in, I got Opal Blitz in. We all went pretty hardcore to get to level 8, but Andy was a little more obsessed with the game when we were. And Andy is definitely well appreciated. And again, so here's an example, friend inviting a friend, inviting a friend. So you have these chains of agents that you're helping, working into the game, leveling them up and everything. So Enteritus Madison, that wasn't my first anomaly. That was actually my second anomaly. But I do agree with Victor. So if you're unfamiliar with the University of Wisconsin-Madison, there's this thing called Bascom Hill. And I think, so in anomalies, they divide up the city into 4 zones. The first zone was State Street, which is always very hopping with college kids and everything. And it's just sort of a walking street where they have, you know, bars and shops and stuff. And then measurements 2, 3, and 4, you're going into the university area. And Bascom Hill is like the main, where a lot of the main buildings of the university are. and there's a lot of portals right there because you know you got like the sciences buildings and engineering and all this kind of stuff is right there on the hill, and it's just this steep and when you're playing in an anomaly, it's very taxing. People don't realize how much walking there is, and it's enjoyable because you're with people and you're outside and the whole thing. So it's a way to get nerds outside playing video games. But man, Bascom Hill, and I remember, was it March? I think it was March or April. But for whatever reason, it was like insanely hot and humid that day. It must have been like spring transitioning into summer because I remember being so, I mean, I drank all my water, you know, all the snacks. The team was struggling to keep up. That was a tough anomaly, and we ended up losing too, so it kind of, you know, put a damper on that. But like I said, when you're at anomalies, you're meeting friends and you're doing all this kind of stuff. So thank you again, Victor, for writing in. That was an awesome story about Enteritus Madison. And Enteritus, that was the time we were trying to, I think, save Clue from getting mind controlled by Ada. We were following the trail of the sensitives. So thanks again. Let's see. Oh, so I want to talk a little bit about my first anomaly experience, to give you a little flavor about who I am. So my first anomaly was Cassandra Chicago, as many of you probably know. So I started the game in July of 2013, and I got into the game, and remember, I didn't know anyone locally at that time. I got my invite from my friend in Montana. He told me to play, so I was just playing in my little neighborhood and making sure that, you know, my neighborhood was mine and I had fields over everything. That's all I did. I didn't do any of the big stuff yet. I wasn't connected to any of the major players. I farmed just by walking around and, you know, that kind of stuff. So I started like many others started at that time in the game, just kind of wandering around and figuring this whole thing out. But I was following the Ingress Report, which was a YouTube series that they had weekly, and they would sort of talk about the news and events in the game and everything. And so anomalies were always a big thing. So I had watched all the back episodes of the Ingress Report and kind of, you know, caught up with what was going on with the sensitives and all the events and who was winning, who was losing, how that was affecting what was going on. And then Minotaur came. I think Minotaur was happening right around the time that I started. And so Minotaur had an event in Minneapolis, but I didn't know enough about the game to know what was going on, sort of like some of these other folks mentioned. So, but after watching the Ingress Report and seeing the videos of all the people there and, you know, all the announcements and the excitement and everything, so I had to go to Cassandra Chicago. I found out because I was like, when are they going to come back? We don't know when this game going to end this year? We don't know what's going on. So there was going to be an event in Chicago, and I was determined to go because I didn't know when they were going to come back, if ever. So I was frantically trying to get my friends to download Ingress, like, let's go to this thing, it's a one-day thing, we can take a day trip, whatever, it's just this event, because again, I didn't know any local players, so I was begging all of my friends to try and get into the game and all this other stuff, and no one would take. So I said, screw it, I'm going to drive myself down to Chicago. So I did. I drove the, 2 hours down to Chicago, parked downtown, ran to the Columbus statue in Chicago in, what was that park? It's by Soldier Field. There's a statue of Christopher Columbus. That's where the anomaly started. And I ran over there and everything was already starting because I was like lost track of time or whatever, I didn't think Grant Park. I didn't think Grant Park was that big. So I'm like running and running and running, and I finally get there and everyone's sort of sporadically spreading out. I didn't have it. Someone, Rorschach, saw me like out of breath, and he looked at me and I was like, what do we do? Where do we go? He's like, hey, join our team, whatever, follow us. We're gonna do this stuff. So I'm following him. he's trying to explain to me. He's like, talk to this other guy. He'll get you figured out at what's going on. The other guy was Brahim, or Agent Final Life. So Final Life, he has kind of a reputation in Chicago, so I'm sure there's people laughing right now. Final Life was my first ever team lead in an anomaly, and I was level 4, and I had no gear at all. I had no keys, and he's like, look, here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna take these shields, because you need level 8 bombs, you need level 8 resonators to be able to hold those portals. But if you're not level 8, there's still a lot for you to do in anomalies. You can deploy mods, and you can link. And both of those things are super important, because you gotta watch those shields, and the other players are watching the bombs and the resonators. So it's good to have someone that can do the shields, and you can do the linking, which scores points for your team. And not only does it score points for you there, but it scores points for the whole anomaly series. So he's like, okay, here's what you're going to do. You're going to deploy as many shields as you can. Just keep going, follow us around. And you're going to hack all the keys you can hack and link. If you can link, do it. Just go crazy with the links. If you can, try and hold the portal, recharge it as a last resort. So here I am, level 4 me, trying as my hardest. And actually, I have some pictures here. Let me see if I can. So here, this is cluster 2. So, and this is in this is like Millennium Park. There's a little statue park there, and you can't, obviously, because it's augmented reality, you can't see the intense battle that's happening right now in this park. You know, there's agents spread around. Each of those statues is probably a portal, and we're fighting our at our wits' end to try and get these portals owned by us. So yeah, so that's, this is the scene that's unfolding right now in the in Chicago, and I'm just trying to link where I can, put shields on where I can, and I think I leveled up to level 5 there. So this is cluster 4, and cluster 4 was sort of, actually, no, this was the transition. Cluster 3 was south of Wacker Drive, and cluster 4 was north. So we had to cross the river to get to cluster 4. But what they didn't realize was that they were filming for Chicago Fire, that TV show, Chicago Fire. They were filming for that that TV show, Chicago Fire, on Wacker Drive. And so they had people at every crosswalk, people who must have worked at the show at every crosswalk. And they just had fire trucks and police cars going back and forth down Wacker Drive, and we're like, we have to go. The measurement is about to start. We need to cross the river, and it's like at least 2 blocks distance to get across Wacker, across the river to where we needed to be. So it's just like these fire trucks kept going back and forth. I'm like, come on. When is this thing gonna happen? And then, of course, now this didn't happen, but it would have been our luck if, okay, here comes a boat, then the bridge goes up and whatever. It's like, you can never plan for this kind of stuff when anomalies are happening, so that's kind of funny. So then the other things that they do is they have the sensitives, and so here's P.A. Chapeau, one of the sensitives, and I think this picture was taken from one of the Ingress reports. So there you can see level 4 me trying to battle hard against the Enlightened there, and P.A. Chapeau is helping us out. And P.A. Chapeau, he had cards, the gear cards to hand out, and he handed me an Ultra Strike card, and I felt like the most powerful person in the entire game that I had an Ultra Strike. So I quick redeemed it, and here I have 1 level 4 Ultra Strike, and I'm just going to use it to just wipe out everything, and it's the Enlightened are just going to be like, what happened? He got the card. And it's like, now I know a level 4 Ultra Strike does pretty much nothing during an anomaly. So I was quickly it didn't help nearly as much as how awesome I thought it felt. And then here's another picture of our team lead Brahim talking to P.A. Chapeau and Carrie Campbell, who was also there. And Carrie Campbell was worried about the glyphs. She kept hearing voices and hearing messages and things, and she was worried that the glyphs were going to cause the end of mankind, and so her and P.A. Chapeau met under the bridge by Trump Tower and talked about the glyphs, and she ended up mysteriously murdered, and we had to solve the murder mystery to help put us into the next Anomaly series, which was 13 Magnus. So there's some pictures. Oh, and another thing that happened during that Anomaly that didn't really it sort of dissuaded us from it. Not that it lowered our morale quite a bit, and there was a field that went over Chicago from pretty far away, as you can see on that screen. There was like literally no way. And remember, this was that phone, like I was talking about before, that didn't exist then. Cassandra was really the first Anomaly where there were these global organizations, and you had team leads and intel people and all this stuff that we have now. That sort of started back in Cassandra. And so there's this field that there's no way we can block because there's not that many agents out there. So the Greens got a field up over Chicago. And I can remember P.A. Chapeau like whispering in my ear, like, there's this field, how can we get to it? I'm like, that's in Dubuque. That's like, I don't even know, 4 hours away from here. There's no way this field is going down before and he's resistant, so he's concerned about the shapers and everything, and like, the influence of the field over the Anomaly site and all this stuff. And it's like, sorry, dude, like, there's just no way we can take out this field. We're gonna fight with, I got my level 4 Ultra Strike that you gave me, and we're gonna stick it to the Enlightened to the very end. So that's sort of my my first Anomaly story. So I know many others have Anomalies. And then I came back, and when I came back, I was like, that's it. I'm fully into this game. This is, this game is now my life. I've experienced an Anomaly. I've experienced the Sensitives. I've, all of the teamwork and coordination that goes in. Like, I am all in, and I haven't let up on the gas ever since that date. So, it's just, you have to go to an Anomaly if you haven't been to one. If you're thinking about it, go to the website, look up the list of cities, find your local teammates that are going, get together with some people, like others have said that they've called in and emailed. Get your local people, figure out how you can get down there, ride share or whatever. It's such a cool, and that event was a very foreshadowing event for me. And again, that was the first event that the team sort of had all this global coordination going on. It was a very foreshadowing event personally, because a lot of the people that would later become my friends were actually at that Anomaly. Like, I think was Andy there? I don't remember. I think he was. Yeah. There was a couple Milwaukee people. Beer Man was there, and I knew him from in comms, but I didn't, he was there. There was a lot of the Chicago people. Linda was there. I met Linda for the first time without knowing who it is. And the legendary Joe Philly, I met him there. And so when I first met Joe Philly, so you go, after the Anomaly's over and everything, you go to the after party location. And there's this long line of people with comic books, and they were getting the comic books signed by this guy. So I go there, and and actually Brian Rose, the first community manager for Ingress, was there too, and I never met him. I didn't actually meet him until Mission Day in Indianapolis, like one of the first mission days. Anyways, there's this long line, and all these people have these comic books, and they're getting it signed, and I was like, well, maybe this is the guy that I just assumed it was the guy who drew the comic, and it's like some kind of famous. I'm like, I better get this autograph, because when I get home, I'll look it up and see if it was some kind of famous, comic book artist or whatever. So, I got my it's in my, I have a box of crap back there of all my Ingress swag. I should show you guys sometime. But in there is the first oh shoot, I have my map from Chicago. The first ever map that I was given in an Anomaly is there. I'll have to show it next week. And I have the comic book signed by Joe Philly in there too. So, you know, I like saving that kind of stuff. And, you know, you get a lot of swag at these anomalies and a lot of freebies, some of the stuff you pay for. You know, it's cool to have that kind of memorabilia. And so it ended up not being the comic book artist. It was Joe Philly, who is a legend unto himself. And you know, maybe we'll tell stories about Joe Philly sometime. That'd be a good episode. That was the story of my first anomaly. I hope all of you who are thinking about anomalies are now charged up and want to go, whether you're green or blue. It's good to, you know, good to see people going to these events. So that pretty much does it for today's show. Next week, we're going to have an agent, a very, how to describe him? He's very well known for his crazy stories. So please call in 414-207-6278 or email us portalhunter@resradio.net. Tell us about your crazy portal ingress stories. Did you go to a crazy lighthouse? Did you go to a military base? Did you go to, you know, Trinity or some of these places that are, you know, only open certain days of the year? Tell us about your crazy no story. Every person has their own, oh my god, I can't believe I just did this for a video game story. Tell us that story, and we're going to share some of ours with this other well-known agent. And we hope to hear from you for next week's show. Again, 414-207-6278. And we hope to see you all next week. Thanks for joining me on this our fourth meeting of the Portal Hunter Club.